Hello, my friends. Thank you for stopping by. Hold on, I'm just going to switch over to the main camera here. How is everybody doing? This is the Outstanding Life Show. My name is Jason. Thank you for stopping by. Today, we're actually going to talk about community. And I wanted to make a quick little video. And I wanted to jump into that real quick. Hold on, I'm just going to remove this and I'll run some commentary. Okay, so it's about community. So many people, they walk around and without any meaning, and they seem half asleep, even when they're busy, doing things that they think are important. You know, this is because they're chasing the wrong things. You know, the best way you can get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to others, devote yourself to your community, and devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning. It was a pretty short video, guys. Okay, so now I want to switch back to the main camera. And, okay, hold on. I'm just checking for comments. Can I boost my audio some? Yes, Amy. Yes, I can. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I've boosted it a little bit. Is that better? I don't want it to clip. Okay, so I've got a thumb from Tina. Thanks for joining, Tina. Really appreciate that. Thanks, Amy, for stopping by. Okay, so where was I? We were chatting about community. And I wanted to ask, you know, how important is community to your success? Now, what do I mean by that? Oh no, now the audio is louder, but it's clipping and it's static. That's like the opposite of what I wanted. Okay, I had it at 73. Now it's at 72. This is all sorts of fun. Well, it's either too low or it's too high. You can't have it both ways, can you? Only on live. Okay, so how's the audio now? I don't have any gain turned on. The compressor? There, I'll put the compressor on a lower amount. The compressor, there we go, it's at 4. Okay, the audio is louder, but it's clipping. Okay, how's the audio now? Is that a little bit better? Or is it still clipping and staticky? I hope it's not staticky. Staticky is harder to deal with. I think I just clipped there. Is it... Hold on. I think I can check the audio. Is that better? Let me see. Well, that doesn't sound too clippy at least. Okay. Now much better. And I did just clip it. Okay, I think it might be because I'm so close to the mic. I don't have one of those pop filters to catch the P's and the and then it clips. Or I could get a sock or a dead cat on the front. That should stop. Note to self. Get a windscreen. Okay, now that we got the audio out of the way, let's jump into the show. So, I wanted to ask questions. It was more about community, and it was relating to how is community related to your success? And then what do I mean by that? Do I mean that your community is directly related to your success as if they're the cause of it? Not really, but there can be an impact that a community has on you, and then that impact can trail into your success. So specifically, I'm going to go into some examples, but I wanted to check out just quickly. If you wanted to get reminders about the show, just type show in the comments. I have a messenger thing set up so that it will send you a reminder the next time we go live. It's working so far. It's been pretty fun just getting it all set up. Thank you to my friend Lisa who helped me out with this. That's really huge. Okay, so, what is community? And is there such a thing as good communities and bad communities? And there can be. There can be quite a bit of different associations that we can make. If you associate yourself with one certain type of crowd, you might have a certain outcome versus if you associate yourself with a different sort of crowd. So recently I've associated myself with a live video community, and I've been able to go and raise my game a little bit. And I think it's had a huge inspiration on me, because then seeing my friend Amy, my friend Lisa, Gregor, Barry, all of these people have been super influential in my progress. Whereas before, if it was just me all by myself, I would still be sitting there with my level 1 phone and my microphone with my Apple wireless headphones plugged into my phone, holding on to it. Whereas now I've been able to go and aspire to want to push higher, to push myself further. Even today, I'm trying something different with my titles. But I'm enjoying the process and I'm having fun along the way. But I wouldn't have had that association. I wouldn't have had that inspiration if I didn't have such a supportive community. David and Luria, holy cow, it all starts with them. Everything else, it's this amazing group of people that follow them around everywhere. I try and absorb as much as I can, and I try and give back as much as I can. And that was kind of the earlier video that we looked at earlier, where it talked about, community isn't really a place you go to go and get something. It's more of a place you go to go and give something. And, each person has their own take on what community is, but I just want to check the comments here. Amy says, I love community. That's how I met you. Yes, Amy, that's huge. We go way back. It's almost been a year now. A lot has changed in a year. You have inspired us too. Aw, thanks, Amy. That's actually really awesome. Okay, so we've talked about the different kinds of communities. And, what are some of the impacts we would have if we surrounded ourselves with a bad community? I'm going to go into more specifics later on, but we'll just talk briefly about associations. In one of our previous episodes, I think we talked about relationships, and we talked about how one of the hardest things that, if you think of a community in like a rural aspect, like a community of a local neighborhood, and if that neighborhood has a certain belief system that, if you were living in the ghetto or you were in a certain environment and you were never aspired to want to go outside of it, and you're never encouraged to push beyond yourself, you would never believe that you could do it. Kind of like me in this live video thing. I never believed I could do it until other people encouraged me to want to go forward with it. So one of the hardest things with a negative community, it can be, even though they themselves are not genuinely negative, it can have a negative impact on us. And the message and resounding feeling it can give us is this disbelief in ourselves or our potential or our talents or, all these great things we can go out there and conquer. But if we don't have that belief system at the ground level in the community, it's hard to carry that message forward if you're continually reminded that you can't do this, you shouldn't go climb this mountain, you should never try to become a doctor or start a live video show, if you don't have that foundation, it's hard to want to go and get out of it. Well, it's harder is what I should say. It's harder to want to push through it and to get out of it. There's some great stories where people have, Michael Jordan, he's accomplished quite a bit, but you don't live with that limiting belief. And the community is where it can start because of their limiting beliefs. And when you have a whole bunch of them all around you, it's easy to adopt that and to run with it, even though it may not be your idea. So good-natured people can still have a negative impact despite how nice they might be with this idea. So that was my quick little bit on negative communities. There are some positive communities too, and those examples I gave of the live video. If you've got a supportive work environment, that's huge. You're more likely to become a lot more productive if you have the tools and the skill set, and your leadership believes in you and they support you. Those are all great ways to get things done in that community aspect. Whereas if you've got a negative work environment that's a lot harsher to deal with, like if it's just high tension stress and you feel like you don't have the resources, pretty soon you're going to believe that and you're just going to run with it and you're not going to be able to accomplish much. Again, it all starts back at what is the impression it's giving you, and the community is where that part relates from others. There's a part where you own that too, and I think we talked about that in a previous episode where what are some mindsets we can have as individuals, but when we have a surrounding environment of people continuously, it's harder to absorb that positive aspect when you're surrounded by so much negative. But when you're surrounded by so much positive and support and encouragement, it's easy to absorb all that good stuff because that's all you ever see. Okay, so let's dive into a little bit more examples here for what are the negative impacts if we continue to associate with bad communities. Earlier I just shared about what negative communities are and what could happen. But for me, just having an honest moment here, in the heat of my addiction and before I took my recovery steps, when it was what I would say now is like just me holding on to hours of sobriety, like white knuckling it through, one of the hardest things for me to grasp was I knew that this wasn't a life I wanted to live. I didn't want to keep living this alcohol, substance abuse. I didn't want to keep living this life over and over again. But what was holding me back was more of this fear of what was going to be on the other side. I had associated myself with this community of people so much to the point that I developed an identity. I believed that I was this persona, not that I was the person behind the persona. I don't know how to explain it any other way, but it wasn't fear of missing out. It was more of a almost like belonging. I had created this idea of myself, and that's where I felt I belonged. And I had believed that I was never going to be better than that. And breaking free of that idea, breaking free of that mindset was going to be one of the hardest things that I look back now and I say that's one of the hardest things I've ever had to accomplish. And, the negative impacts of continuing to believe in that, be it a loved one that tells you can't do something, or if it's someone that's telling you, don't climb that mountain, don't bother going to study to become a doctor, don't push yourself to run that race. You can do anything you want. The fact that I'm still here after rehab, alcohol, substance abuse, it all starts with believing that you can do it, yes. But the community I was associating myself with beforehand, and it's not all their fault. Like, it wasn't my community's fault that I consumed all those things. Let me own up to my side of the street here. I was not in a good mindset, and I wasn't in a good place, and I was making very poor decisions. And it definitely wasn't something that was healthy or conducive to the life I wanted to live. And I knew that I wanted to live a better life. And I knew that I had something greater to achieve. And that included a life that was going to be outstanding. This show that I have here, hold on. So if you're just joining us today, we're talking about an outstanding life. My name is Jason. I've been through recovery and overcoming addiction. I'm still fighting the fight. I'm still in the battle. I still do everything I can to help myself, and then I also try and help others. And part of the message that I have in this show is to get the message out there, to share with others and say, hey, you know what? There is a better life that's out there. And I don't want this show to be something that persuades someone that this is a life you want. What I want this show to be is for someone who's already made the decision that that's a life that they're going to live. So they've already made the choice of being sober. They made the choice of, not consuming any substances, or, they made the choice that they're not going to be having that addictive personality anymore. And this show is going to be a toolkit for them to help them. This isn't something where I'm going to try and sell you sobriety. I don't think I could sell you sobriety anyways. That's a really hard thing to try and sell onto anybody. But if you're just joining us and you want to get reminders of when we go live next, I go live every weekend, Saturdays at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And I send out a message to everybody who types show in the comments about 10 minutes before the show, just to get them a heads up. And so they can jump in the show and say hi. If you're in the comments, leave a comment, say hi. I really want to give you a hug right now, Jason. Aw, Amy. Virtual hug. That's awesome. Thank you, Amy. Okay, let's go on to, so we talked about, where did we leave off? We talked about negative and positive communities. We also talked about what would the impacts be if we stayed in that negative community. And then now let's go forward with the next part. Let's go look at, sorry, I'm out of the flow now. What would happen if we continue to associate ourselves with positive communities? Okay, so we talked about the negative communities. Now let's talk about what would happen if you associate yourself with positive communities. Okay. So I am currently, what I do in my day job is I work as a help desk agent. That's what I do on paper. That's what I'm troubleshooter, technical. But I was applying for the job. This is years ago. I was applying for the job and I was shot down for the job. They said no, and they said, and I applied again, and they said no again, and I applied a third time, and they said no a third time. I applied on the 6th or 7th time. I can't remember. And then they said no, and I remember I was venting to someone, and he happened to be a pilot, and I was venting to him, and I was like, because he was flying, and then when you're hanging out with the pilot and you don't really have much place to go. So he's like, so how's it going? How are you doing? And then I just unloaded on this pilot. I was like, this help desk job, it's so impossible to get. You have no idea how difficult this is. The bar is set so high. And I just dumped everything that I was holding on to. I was saying it's unfair. I was saying all of these things about how, I studied and I tried to, amp up my game, and it still wasn't enough. And after he let me vent for like 10 minutes solid, and then he's like, can I ask you a question? And I was like, sure. Kind of taken aback. I was like, sure, what does this pilot want to ask me? And he was like, how hard do you think it is to become a pilot? I was like, I don't know. How hard is it? I'm sure it's pretty hard, Mr. Pilot. I'm sure it's pretty hard, right? Because he's a pilot and he's asking me. And I was like, I think you have to fly a plane and you have to go to school for it. And he's like, yeah, it's exactly right. I have to go to school, but have to pay someone a few $100s to fly the plane for an hour. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And he's like, guess how many hours I have to fly? And I was like, I don't know, try a few 100 hours. And he's like, try a few thousand. And I was like, a few thousand hours at a few $100 an hour. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly right. And he's like, so what I'm saying, Jason, is I was a pilot before I was a pilot. And I was like, oh yeah, that's actually kind of cool. That's right, you were a pilot. And he's like, so Jason, I've got another question for you. And I was like, all right, what is it? And he's like, do you need a desk to help? And I was like, no, I don't. And he's like, so what you're saying is you can help without actually having a desk. I'm like, that's true. And he's like, you can help no matter what. I'm like, that's right. And he's like, so Jason, let's just say another thing. Let's say they called you back after saying no to you. And then let's say they decided to bring the bar down. They lowered the standards. And because they lowered the standards, they're now letting you in. And they offered you the job now. Would you take the job? And I said, no, I wouldn't want it then. And he said, well, why not? And I'm like, well, because that was easy. And he's like, exactly. If it's easy, you don't want it. You don't need a desk to help. And that conversation stuck with me. Like, to this day, I was like, I don't need a desk to help. I can do this on my own. Like, I can. And I began to wonder, like, what is it that I can do to help better myself so that I can be an asset to help others? And what is it that I can do to... And his conversation finished off, and he's like, you could be upset that you were shot down. And he's like, or you could be happy that you're in the top handful of percent where you're operating at that level, where the top 1-2% are the ones that get in. And I was like, I never thought of it that way. I always thought that it was just me not getting all these things. And he's like, no, the fact that you're up against other A+ players shows that you're an A+ person. That doesn't mean that you don't need a desk to help. You can do this no matter what. Hey, kitty. And so that's where I was like, man, this is actually pretty important. And because of that conversation so many years ago, it revamped my entire thought process of how I approached what I do, how I help, what I can action. And the next time I applied, I was successful. And now fast forward to here we are. This community that I've associated myself with has been super important to, well, my recovery and my ability to help others. But I can't say that, and I don't know the name of the pilot, but I remember he was a pilot and he had a huge impact on me. And it's such a fun story to share. So for me, the impact of associating myself with good people is, yeah, I might not get that role, but maybe it was destined for me not to get it. Like, I think I didn't get it the first time because my average handle time was too high, and then the next time I didn't get it was my stats weren't too good, and my sales weren't good on another time, or my quality maps weren't. Like, every time it went wrong in a new way, but it never went wrong the same way twice. And I think, as long as you don't give up, as long as you have that idea what you want to accomplish, you can actually make it happen. All you have to do is not give up and stick to the plan. Okay, I'm going to go check out the comments here. Hold on. Yes. Okay, Amy is sharing. That's such a great story. I'm impressed that the pilot gave you such good advice. I hope he's a father. I'm sure most pilots are pretty amazing people. These guys, they fly planes for a living. I can only imagine how awesome that is. I've only flown in planes, but still. Okay, so we talked about associating ourselves with bad communities. We looked at the impacts of good communities. And then now let's move forward. We'll take a look at this week's safety moment. And the safety moment is, it's okay to not know the answers. And what do I mean by that? It's okay that we identify that we have these people that we consider are supportive. And it's okay to know that there are some people in our lives who don't add as much value as we like them to. And it's okay to know that not all supportive people are offering that support in a way that's received as support. just like we shared with those communities that talk people down, that never actually aspire to leave that community, versus the other kind of community where it just encourages everyone to achieve and there's nothing but growth. And so some of the best people in our lives, some of the closest friends and family, will tell us to play it safe and to never push. But the kind of people that I associate with, the kind of people that I choose to have in my life, the kind of person that's watching this show, is someone that's an A-plus player, who pushes themselves, who develops themselves and chooses nothing but happiness, growth, prosperity. We're all living this outstanding life. It's just me personally, I'm living it by not consuming alcohol or drugs anymore. I'm living this recovery life, overcoming addiction. It's crazy how rampant it can get. And that's the purpose of what this show is. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about recovery, alcohol, and addiction. This week's episode, we're talking about community and the impacts it has, relating to, how we can receive that impact of community. It can have a negative impact, we talked about, and it can have a positive impact. Well, I guess by impact, I should say influence. Influence is a better word. All right. And if you would like to get reminders of this, the next time we go live, we have shows every weekend. We do Saturdays at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. If you want to get a notification, just type show in the comments, and then I'll have a message sent out to you, like a Facebook message, a few minutes just before we go live. Okay, so let's move on. So we talked about this one. There we go. Okay, so what do we do if we want to change our situation? But changing who we associate with, it can be help. What do I mean by that? Do I mean that your community is directly related to your success? No, but it can certainly have an influence or an impact on your mindset or on your day-to-day interactions or how you show up, or if we associate ourselves with that negative crowd. Remember when I shared my negative experience? And so when I got a positive community, I had a whole other set of problems. So the problems are never really going to go away, but how we approach them can have an impact. Okay, so when we need to discuss communities, who we associate with day to day can have an impact. Who we associate week to week, month to month. But where do we start? How do we change our communities? And so what I'm going to point out is, begin with the end in mind. What do I mean by that? I mean that, play the tape to the end. In a previous episode, I shared what that meant, but if you're just joining us, it's okay to have a belief of what your outcome is. And if you have this mindset of this supportive community, what does that look like? And if you make a list, and one of the things that I've done to help me make decisions, like an action registry, is make a list of all the qualities that I want in a community. I want some, when I think of community, I think of supportive, I think of encouraging, developmental, they're positive, they're aspirational. These are nice fluffy things, but you also want them action oriented, and you want someone that's able to listen to you, empathize, and to be able to be there for you when you need them. Sometimes you just need someone to vent to, like to decompress, someone that you can go for a walk with, or hop on a bike, or go to the gym. Those are the certain communities that I reached out to for certain help. I know that there's not one person that's able to do all of the things that I want. There's certain people I reach out to when I need to go to the gym. Certain people I reach out to, like Amy, when I need help with my live stream and my audio that crapped out at the beginning. There's people I reach out to when I need to go to a meeting. I still go to meetings. Alcoholics Anonymous, there's over 400 meetings in the city of Calgary alone. If you don't like one meeting, you've got $400 you can go to. It's pretty amazing. So if you need to make a list of this community, once you have that written down, like as soon as you start writing it, like these are the things that I want to associate with. You start writing them down, and the first, I want to say, half dozen are pretty generic. But then as you start writing, you keep writing, and you're like ideas start flowing. Well, actually, I want someone that's able, if you've got kids, I want someone that's able to be able to help understand children's needs. I want to help someone that's helpful of someone who's got elderly needs. You start branching out with your requests. And as you articulate those, as you document that, you now have a list. List one. Once you've got that list, start up a second list. And then with that second list, you start documenting what kind of person would I need to become to attract that kind of community. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight, because once you've got that big list, you're like, holy crap, yeah, these are heavy hitting things that I want in my life daily, like as a ritual. Okay, well, to get that, what do you need to become then? What steps do you need to help shape that outcome? And here is where, you're not going to change your community overnight. You can't just hop on a plane and then transfer yourself to a different place. I moved from BC to Alberta thinking that, you know what, I'm just going to move away. I'm just going to hop on a plane. I'm just going to escape from everything. And the problem with that is when you move, you still take you with you. And I had this idea of what I wanted, but I wasn't prepared to do anything of the hard work into it. So what ended up happening? Well, since I didn't put any of the hard work into it, I found myself in the exact same community I had in before. And none of that was conducive or supportive or encouraging. None of that was helpful to what I believed as my positive outcome. And it didn't work out so well. I relapsed, and it was one of the hardest things for me to hit. And again, you hit those rock bottoms. I don't know if you guys watched one of the previous episodes. Was it last week we talked about hitting rock bottom, and the weekend before we talked about relationships, and the weekend before that we talked about stress. So we've covered the wide gamut of different aspects of the recovery addiction wheel, if you want to call it that. And then this one is speaking about a supportive community. And so earlier I mentioned, before my recovery, I never thought that what I liked about going out on Fridays and Saturday nights in the heat of my addiction was that association that I thought, or that belief I had about myself as what was making decisions. Not actually me. It was this belief that I had of who I was, not actually who I was in that moment. And as soon as I was able to appreciate, not just recognize, but appreciate wholeheartedly that I can choose to associate myself with something different, that I can choose a different path for myself. As soon as I made that choice, pretty soon everything else started to fall into place. That list that I had wanted so bad for so long suddenly just started to show up. And, if you told me that beforehand, before all this, I wouldn't have listened to you. I would have told you to take a flying jump at a rolling donut or something crazy like that. And what would have happened is none of that would have made any sense to me then. And that's where this show is not dedicated to people who are not ready to make that choice. This show is dedicated to people who have already made the choice to want to go ahead. And here is where we have the chance to help shape that. And we can choose to help shape that by who we associate with. And who we associate with is the community. And I saw this quote the other day, and it was, our vibe attracts our tribe. And I was like, man, that's huge. If all we ever have is a negative vibe, then we're only going to attract negative people. If we only have positive outcomes in mind, we're only going to accept positive people in our life. I just removed someone from my life recently who didn't fit that mindset, that list that I made. And it was so heartbreaking to want to go and make the decision. But you know what? You got to do what's right for you. Okay, Amy says she got her Facebook Messenger notice tonight. Yes, that's huge. That's awesome. And we've got Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. You're here today. Thanks for stopping by. I loved the show you two did. That was actually really fun. I laughed a lot in that show. Amy's show. Okay. And it's definitely our choices that we have, and we have the power. Yes, yes, we do. That's awesome, Amy. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. That was kind of a short show. We normally go 45, but today I kind of had some audio issues and it threw me off. I did cut the pre-show short. I remember that now. That's kind of funny that I had the audio things. Thank you, Amy, for helping me point that out. I appreciate everybody for stopping by. Again, my name is Jason, and if you want to come hang out... Sorry, hold on, that's not the one I wanted. This is the one I wanted. This is the Outstanding Life Show. My name is Jason. I am here. We were talking about recovery and overcoming addiction, all the tools we need and all the great conversations we're going to have. Aw, thank you. We had fun too. Yes, that was awesome. You too. You're hilarious. You two should just have a show together. Like, it would just be fun. Just talking. Okay, I'm going to cut the stream, but you guys have fun. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Bye.